Hello, welcome and thanks for joining me. This video is a continuation of the standard basic bodice construction. It focuses on the waist shaping of the block. First, I'll be ruling the shoulder to bust point measurement, which is 11 inches in this draft. So on the neck point, just below the depth of armhole bust line, I will mark my 11 inches. This line goes across to the center front line and to the side seam. Because I want it to be a straight line, I'll be using the depth of armhole bust line as a guideline, meaning that I'll be measuring from this line to that point. And whatever I have, I'll be marking that on the center front and also on the side seam. With these, I'm sure to have a very straight line. So guidelines are very important in pattern drafting. They help you to achieve straight lines. This line is called the true bust line. It is an important line in this draft. Later on and in some styles, we'll be making use of this line. For the waist shaping, use a simple calculation, which is half waist measurement plus 3/4 inch in small and medium sizes and half waist measurement plus 1 inch in larger sizes. Here I'll be using half of waist measurement plus 3/4 inch since this is a medium size. The waist measurement of this draft is 31 inches. So 31 inches divided by 2, that is 15.5 inches, that is 15.5 inches, plus 3/4 inch. Total will be 16.25 inches. So that's what I should have on the waist of this draft at the end of the day. So whatever is left will be used for the waist shaping. So how do I get this measurement on the waist? It's simple. Starting from the center back on the waist, I'll be measuring to the outer shaped side seam of the center back. And then I'll continue that measurement from the outer side seam of the front block towards the center front. Here I'm measuring on the waist to the outer shaped seam on the waist point, and this is it. So I'm going to continue that measurement from the outer shaped side seam of the front and then towards the center front block. And here I have my 16.25 inches. So from this point, whatever is left to the center front is the waist reduction. That is to say, will be used to shape the waist. So here I have 5 inches. So I'll be using 5 inches for the waist shaping. This 5 inches, I will be giving 2 inches to the back block and 3 inches to the front block. The reason for that is obvious because the front block is way bigger than the back block. The 2 inches I'll be using on the back block will be distributed on the slanted center back, the inner shaped seam, and the waist dart. So for the slanted center back, you could use 1/2 inch, 5/8 inch, or 3/4 inch, depending on the amount of reduction you have on the block. But here I'll be giving 5/8 inch to the slanted center back, and that's because of the amount of the reduction I have. So on the CB line, I will mark on that waist point 5/8 inch. I'll be ruling the slanted center back up to the back line. I'll be ruling it down to the hip line without taking anything out of the hip. On the inner shaped seam, I'll be marking 3/8 inch. This is maximum. You do not want to overshape the side seam. If you do that, it will cause drags on your pattern. So I'll be ruling that to the back other arm point. Placing my curve this way. It also goes down to the hip line, giving the back block a nice shape. I have given 5/8 to slanted center back and 3/8 to inner side seam. That's a total of 1 inch. Remember, I gave 2 inches to center back. So having taken this 1 inch, I'm only left with 1 inch for the waist dart. The waist dart is marked using 1/4 inch of back width. In some figure, you find out that when you use 1/4 of back width, the line comes too close to the center back, and that is not too nice. So you could actually go ahead and use the midpoint of the slanted CB and the inner shaped seam, which is exactly what I'll be doing here. But if the shape you are working with allows you to use 1/4 of back width, go ahead and do that. Here I'll be measuring this line and then get the midpoint. Remember earlier I explained that your line must be straight. So because I want this line to be straight, I'll go ahead and measure whatever I have from the center back to that point and mark it above, and also mark it below, so that I will have a straight line. I'll be marking the dark line above the waist by 4 3/4 inches. That's about 12 centimeters. And below the waist, that is down towards the hip line, I will be measuring 5 1/8, about 13 centimeters. It is on this line I will be marking my 1 inch, dividing it 1/2 inch to the left and 1/2 inch to the right. So here I have my dart. I'll go ahead and connect the dart to the highest point of the line. Here the dart is formed. Now on the front block, I have 3 inches. I will also be giving only 3/8 to the inner shaped seam. And then there's also going to be a slanted center front using 3/8 inches as well. So whatever is left will be used on the waist dart. But first, let me mark my inner shaped seam, measuring 3/8. This is maximum in all sizes, and I have explained the reason for that earlier. So after marking it, I'll also rule it up to the UP, placing my curve this way. And on the front, I'll be marking 3/8 slanted center front. This line also goes up to the chest line. So here I have the inner shaped seam and the slanted center front. Remember when we're drafting this pattern, the shoulder dart was created using 1/4 of chest width, a measurement of which I had 3 3/4 inches. So I'll still go ahead and mark my 3 3/4 inches from the main center front line, so that this dart will align. In some drafts, you could go ahead and use your bust span measurement, or still you can also use the midpoint. But just make sure that whatever you use to create the shoulder dart is what you should use to create the dart, the waist dart, so that the dart can align. So here I'll measure my 3 3/4 inches. This line goes above the waist by 5 1/8 inches. That is 13 centimeters, and goes below the waist by 6 inches. That is 15 centimeters. So on the waist, I will be marking above 5 1/8 inches, and below it I will also mark 6 inches. So I'll be getting a guideline from the center front to that point, and then mark the same on the lower hem region before dropping this line, so that I can achieve a straight line. Remember, we are using 3 inches for this front waist block, and I've given 3/8 inch to the inner shaped seam and 3/8 inch to the slanted center front. That will be a total of 3/4 inch. So if I minus 3/4 inch from the 3 inches, I will be left with 2 1/4 inches. So that's what I'll be marking on the waist dart. To divide these 2 1/4 inches, I'll simply pick my tape measure and identify my 2 1/8 inches and then fold into 2 so that I can get equal width. That's the easiest way I could divide it for now. And so I'll be marking half of it to the left or on the waistline. I'll be marking half of it to the left on the waistline and half of it to the right on that waist dart. That gives me 2 1/4 inches. I'll be ruling it up to the dart point above. On the dropped waistline, I will make sure that that measurement is the same so that I will mark it the same depth that was marked on the upper waistline and then complete the dart to the point below. I have succeeded in taking out the 5 inches reduction from this block. It's as simple as that. Quickly, I will be connecting the waist point to the hip point on the side seam. And the slanted center front as well to the hip point, to the hip line below, taking nothing out of the hip measurement. So here, go ahead and shade all your darts. This simply means that these darts are either going to be stitched or taken out of the pattern, depending on the style. The shaded area are not part of the draft. To complete the shoulder seam, go ahead and crease the inner dart line and then match it with the outer dart line, closing up this dart. When this is done, the pattern will no longer lie straight on the table, and that is fine. Now, rule a straight line from the neck point to the shoulder point. After that, trace the line with your tracey wheel. When the dart is released, if you look closely, you'll be seeing a shaped dart just above the shoulder. Go ahead, use your ruler and highlight those dotted lines formed by the tracey wheel, and that gives you the complete shoulder and a well-shaped shoulder dart. Place your tape measure on edge and measure round the armhole, which should be a total of top arm measurement plus 4 3/4 inches or top arm measurement plus 5 1/8 inches. In this draft, it is expected to be 17 inches in this draft because the top arm measurement is 12 1/4 inches. 12 1/4 inches plus 4 3/4 inches, 17 inches. So place your tape measure on edge and measure round, dropping out the gap if there is any in your own draft, and continue that measurement until you get to the shoulder point of the front. If that measurement is too small or is too much, you can either increase or decrease it. There are various ways to do that. Sometimes the waist shaping may be done differently depending on what you want to achieve. For example, in styles that require that the center front is placed on fold, the value of the slanted center front measurement is added to the waist dart. It also applies to the back. In styles that the back is placed on fold, the slanted center back measurement intake is added on the waist dart. This block can be used in various ways. When making a free dress, trace the block from the straight side seam. When you are making a semi-fitted dress, go ahead and trace from the outer shaped seam. But when you are making a dress that is very fitted, trace the block from the inner shaped seam. Lastly, the waist dart is stitched below the shoulder blade at the back. And at the front, the waist dart is stitched 1 inch below the bust point. In some drafts, this dart might go above the true bust line. When that happens, shorten it by 1 inch. Also, the shoulder dart is stitched 3/4 inch or 1 inch above the bust point. So that will be all for now in this draft. See you next time. Goodbye.